Seplat, Airtel Africa, and MTN Nigeria were the major stocks that impacted the bullish performance recorded in the first half of this year in Nigeria's stock market. Data by PFI Capital shows that the index closed half-year at 21.3%. Olumide Sole, an investment analyst, joins me now for this discussion. Olumide, thank you so much. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank
and
you
in
for having me.
Studio also. Quite a robust report you put together for the half-year, looking at the performance of the stock market, and we did see blue chips or bellwethers, taking the lead. But talk to us about that. I mean, who are in terms of the top five? Let's start with that top five bellwether or blue chip stocks that drove that performance.
Top on the list is Seplat, which returned about 100% half year 2022, followed by Airtel Africa, then MTN, Danksem, and Nigerian breweries. Those are major bellwether stocks that drove the bullish sentiment. And something about the top two stocks, they are fundamentally strong. Firstly, for Seplat, being that is the high oil prices in the market, that's in the global market, affected their fundamentals. So investors have definitely seen that their earnings will be strong. And besides that, this stock, that's Seplat and Airtel Africa, their fungibility, that is, they can be traded on they're traded on more than one exchange. That's the Nigerian exchange and the London exchange. So definitely that has helped in also spurring the interest of investors in those stocks. As investors, that's foreign investors try to use those stocks to leave the equities market or leave the Nigerian equities market.
And look at Nigeria's emerging market peers, or frontier market peers, if you will, and all the volatility that we're seeing, especially what central bank governors are doing with the rate hikes, all over, not just in the U.S., inflation, just that market volatility and uncertainty. But it would appear that Nigerian market is on some sort of a stable cruise, as it were. And I know you also pointed to domestic investors holding the fort, if you will. Talk to us about that. I mean, what is the investment play for the domestic investor, how they're playing the market with all the uncertainty and the headwinds going on?
First and foremost, the global stocks have been experiencing more of bearish sentiment, most of them closing half-year in negative territory, but Nigerian stock has not has defied all odds, as even second best performing stock in the world yet to date. And this is majorly driven by the fundamentals, number one, and not just that alone. Another major factor has been that the fact that foreign investors are not in the Nigerian market as the way as they are in other markets. So that contagion, this thing is not in this market. So definitely because of the domestic investors.
Sorry to bother you, but when you say fundamentals, because if someone who's not in Nigeria would be thinking, oh, does that mean that the economy has been immune to the global inflation that we're seeing, and the price shocks and rise in energy prices? We know we do have our own cocktail of issues here. So are local investors in denial when you say the market is denied or has defied all odds, as it were? So what is that? Is it for lack of investment options, etc.?
The good thing about inflation is as much as it's bad for some stocks, it's also good for some stocks. Yeah, so stocks like the major driver of the inflation now is high oil price in the world. So, and Nigeria being a major oil producing state, so that's definitely is meant to strengthen the fundamentals.
We didn't exactly benefit, and I mean for the companies like Seplat and some others in the downstream oil sector, they're still battling with vandalism and theft and very low production for the sovereign. That's Nigeria.
For the sovereign.
I'm just trying to put all of that into context in terms of what is driving this bullish sentiment.
Yeah, so investors are definitely looking at the stocks in the upstream sectors, as for Seplat majorly, as stocks that will definitely return good earnings despite these odds and every this thing. And besides that, like I mentioned, the fungibility also is also another major factor which would help spur investors' bullish sentiment in those stocks.
So let's talk about other sectors. I like to talk about the consumer goods because, it's tied to the everyday Nigeria in terms of spending, disposable income, etc. What can you tell us about the consumer goods and how those companies have been able to weather the storm or continue to weather the storm of inflation versus, the cost of living crisis for the average Nigerian?
So for the consumer goods sector, that's the major drivers were Nigerian breweries and Guinness. Nigerian breweries did about 15%, and Guinness did about 30-something%. So these stocks drove the bullish sentiment we've seen in the consumer goods sector, with the consumer goods having about 5.76% half year, sorry.
Given the circumstances, is that a decent return?
It's not decent, 5.7. But if you look at it specifically, stocks specifically, it's decent. But some other stocks in that same sector have suffered due to the inflationary pressures. That in the sense that their cost is going to rise, investors perceiving that cost is going to rise and so on. So which will definitely have impact their earnings. So investors are definitely pricing that in the valuation of some of the stocks, so which are led to what sell-offs in some of those stocks. But the ones that investors feel that they can still weather the storm and pass on the cost to their consumers, you see investors still buying and picking some of them.
Or in them in code, what stocks do you like now? Investors who are looking at us and saying, okay, can I come in? What's a good re-entry point? What stock can I jump onto right now?
So another, due to the global economic headwinds, another stock I'll be looking at stocks that are related to commodities, like the ones that Okumu oil, Presco and so on, that are linked to palm oil prices and so on. So those stocks, I'll definitely be looking at picking some of them.